Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Thanks for waiting while we were getting ourselves set up. So today's webinar is going to show you how we can demonstrate the advantages of thinking of your data in a more strategic way. We have a number of space for you. Further, we're going to let you know how adding a further level of intelligence to that can really help you reap tangible benefits in terms of both customer engagement and customer satisfaction. And from a housekeeping point of view, the content's going to run for about 30 to 35 minutes, and then there'll be plenty of time after that for questions. If during the course of the webinar you've got a question for any of our speakers, please just click on the Q&A button and enter it there, and we'll get round to it at the end. If you could also please do us a favor and just highlight who the question is for. My name is Paul McCord. I'm the Alliances Manager for Segment in EMEA, and we have a number of speakers entertained this morning. So over the course of the webinar, you'll hear from Julian and Sebastian regarding Segment and Looker's respective maturity models, and absolutely delighted to be joined by two of our joint customers, Steve Lucas and Arne Timmerman from Receipt Bank and Your Surprise, respectively. They'll share the experience of their respective customer journey. So without hanging around, let's get straight over to Julian, who'll be first up. Julian is Segment's Commercial Sales Manager for EMEA, and he's going to cover how Segment think about assisting customers in getting more control over and a more complete view of their customer data. So Julian, over to you.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate the introduction. Good morning, everyone. Delighted to join the webinar this morning. My name's Julian. As Paul said, I run the EMEA sales team here at Segment. I've worked in the SaaS and PaaS industries for probably over 15 years, and more recently in the customer data space. I'm delighted to introduce the model that we use to help our customers think about their customer data strategy. And first off, when we speak to customers in the market, we hear about 4 objectives all the time. One is collecting customer data across all of the channels that the customers interact with a brand and getting into the tools that need to use it. Secondly, it's ensuring that data is standardized in a usable format. Thirdly, it's understanding what data belongs to which customer and being able to personalize their experience. And fourthly, it's respecting customers as you collect their data and respecting local legislation. And this is typically where Segment comes in. We do 4 things, believe it or not. We help our customers collect their data across all of those channels instead of taking a traditional tool-first approach of integrating CRM, customer service, and marketing automation tools across every channel. We provide a single integration for our customers to collect their customer data and events, and then with hundreds of pre-built integrations, we deliver that data to the tools that need to use it. As the data travels across our platform, we ensure that it's standardized. We check the data against the dictionary to ensure that it complies with the format that's expected, so it's actually usable. We also add further value by synthesizing the data. We identify who the users are. We create a profile of those users, and we're able to create audiences that match similar traits. And then finally, we activate the data by pushing those audiences and pushing that customer data to all the tools that need it in the format that they need it, at the speed that they need it. So enough of the sales pitch. I'm going to talk about how we actually help our customers on that journey. We use the data maturity model to assess our customers and understand where they should focus first to achieve what they want to achieve with customer experience. There are 4 key competencies that we evaluate our customers on. The first is collection of data, the second is the synthesization of data, and the third is acting on that data, actually making it usable across the customer interaction tools. And then the 4th competency is the ability to adapt, to actually introduce new tools into the process when they're needed. Most customers try and jump too quickly to the personalized space, to the top of the pyramid, without thinking about the foundations that need to be in place. So with this model, there are 13 different attributes across those 4 competencies that we help our customers assess themselves against. The collection is focused on collecting data in a respectful format and ensuring it's complete. The synthesization area has attributes considered about how insightful the data is and how pervasive it is across your organization. Acting is the ultimate goal, which is the personalization of customer experiences based on the data that we know about them and its timeliness. So are we able to provide the experience at the speed that makes sense for our industry? And then, of course, we have two questions for adaptability around accessibility of data and agility. So are we able to introduce new tools when they're needed as our stack changes over time? So when we engage with customers, we help them evaluate themselves against this model. And here's a sample output, a ranking for each of the 13 different attributes. By looking at it in this holistic fashion, it helps us focus in on the areas that have the highest priority for a customer, what they should start with first as they go along this journey, and where it can have biggest impact. We also provide an overall rating for the scale. A lot of companies we speak to in the market come to us as a developing company. Developing is defined as we're currently collecting customer data. We have it integrated with a number of tools. We want to be strategic with the data, but we find it difficult to trust the data, and we find it difficult to access the data in a speed that makes sense. So we find it difficult to actually get our audiences into destination tools and provide a personalized experience. And most companies are looking to progress to the leading level 2 and level 3, where we go one step further and data becomes trusted in the organization, completely pervasive, easy to access, respectful of customers, and timely. Ultimately, it's easier to run reports, understand our customer profiles, their segmentations in a timely fashion, and deliver to the tools that are going to provide the customer's experience. And that's typically how we use this model to help our customers understand where they are, where they want to get to, and what the best approach is to get there. That's all I wanted to introduce very quickly, the data maturity model this morning. I'm really looking forward to hearing from our customers at the end of the webinar. Paul, back to you to hand over to Sebastian.
Brilliant. Thanks, Julian. Thanks very much for that. That's a really concise interview there, or overview, should I say, of how Segment's approach can, I think, really help all customers regardless of where they are on that data maturity. And now what we want to do is, I suppose, look at what's added into the mix when you start to build out your stack, and how Looker's approach and methodology can help with, I suppose, more universal empowerment and bringing the benefits of that advanced maturity to all of your users. So to do that, let's pass over to Sebastian Fabry from Looker.
Thank you, Julian. Hi, I'm Sebastian from Looker. I've been here for 4 years, kind of working with our customers and helping them get to a point where they can be happy with their analytics. There's a journey that we've seen times and times over, and very often those journeys could start 20 years ago, just like this journey started a couple of years ago. It's just a question of the pace at which you move through these stages here. But what we've seen historically is that most companies start with workbook analytics, right? And that's typically Excel. To make it simple. And over time, as they want to get more sophisticated, maybe they start looking at other solutions. One of the first obvious steps might be to actually use the built-in analytics that a lot of the SaaS tools that we're using these days provide, like Salesforce directly, or maybe there's something in AdWords or in GA, or maybe your email service provider is giving you something. There's kind of this point in time and point in place analytics that are available in all these different tools. And that's going to give you some better results typically, right? But there's still a lot of manual work combining all the data from different places, from different sources. And after a while of doing that, what starts to make sense is to think that, oh, maybe if I can get all of this similar reporting, but getting all in one place, that would be so much better, right? And that is better because now everything is in one place. And when you want to know, for example, what were my sales last week and how did that relate with, how did that do with the marketing, you can see that your sales were down on Thursday, right? And that's great. Now you have the first answer. Well, obviously that's going to generate the very next question, right? Okay, well, why were they down on Thursday? And so now because you know that data exists and you can see what is happening, course, you want to know why, and so you want to try to fix it. And so what's happening a lot is that the next step is to actually take an extract of this data, kind of group it together, and then send it off to an analyst or to another person to actually go and answer that question, be it by doing additional analysis or being by creating a new report, creating a new dashboard based on that information. But actually what you're doing there, you're sort of hitting a wall, because by this action of extracting the data and sending it back to another analyst, you're kind of slipping back into this workbook analytics mode, right? Everything looks nicer, right? Your graphics are excellent, your visualizations are beautiful, but you're still kind of back in that workbook mode where you're limited to one set of data that's sitting in one place, and you're just kind of embellishing what's happening on top. And there's a reason this has historically been happening, and that's simply that databases were not fit for purpose when it came to analytics, right? You couldn't do the analysis directly in a database because they were either very expensive or very slow or both. And so putting data out of there in memory really made sense. However, these days, it's not true anymore, right? Over the last few days, a lot of the databases that Segment work with as well, you see that they're incredibly fast, they're very cheap, and that's only getting better and better. And so what happens is that kind of creates a whole new world of possibilities. What we're seeing is that it's not actually possible to kind of break through that wall and carry on to get more values and more maturity in your data analytics. Where in the past, you have to get centralized reporting and slide back down to workbook analytics, now we can sort of break through that wall and move up the value chain. So what does that mean in the first place is give everybody in a company the ability to explore the data on their own. So that when they ask why were the sales down on Thursday, they can actually look at that themselves without having to extract the data, without having to ask somebody else to answer that question. You let those people serve, and you want to do that in a way that maintains the standard, right? So that you know that whoever gets the answer is getting the right answer. That's going to be your kind of first new step. The next one, analytics everywhere, is where you're now kind of not forcing people to go to a specific place for the analytics. You bring data, you bring the answers to them in their workflow wherever they are, right? So it could be that some people using Salesforce actually has information about their accounts in there. Some people are using Slack, they would be able to ask for questions directly there. Everyone's getting an email of the relevant data that they can click through and explore whenever they have new questions on these dashboards or on this report, etc. In addition, part of this work can also be automated, right? So if you're spending too much money on AdWords, let's automatically kind of try to detect that and then pause them for review if those the money is the return on investment is not there. If your customers are getting unhappy, let's automatically create tasks to tell the managers about that and assign them those tasks to be trying to remedy the situation, etc. So that's kind of where you're trying to be, where life is easy for the users, thanks to some automation, and thanks to bringing the information to them where they need it. And all of this really is powered by the idea of a data platform. That's what we're trying to do at Looker. Kind of having a semantic layer that's going to provide you with that governance, with that single source of truth across all your metrics, but then really power everything that people need, be it that's a BI interface, right, where you can have your dashboard, you can have your reports like people are used to, but it could also be creating custom applications that are dedicated to certain use cases, dedicated to certain vertical, that will be tailored to the needs of those users. providing data analytics internally or even externally to some of your customers. And then finally, as I was describing earlier, integrate those automated workflows and also simplify manual ones. Right? Sharing data, moving data from one place to another should be very simple, should be as simple as clicking a button. So as we've seen this journey and as we've been working with a lot of these people here, we've put together this analytical maturity model, right, which is based on 5 pillars. So this model helps companies understand where they currently sit on the analytical maturity spectrum based on 5 pillars of analytical proficiency and then through 5 stages of maturity. So that can provide you a multidimensional overview, like a matrix of where you are, but also what's possible, right? What's the top level, what the top company is doing. The first one, the first step in analyzing this is to actually have a strategy and a vision, right? Defining an overarching strategy for the company, and that's going to include leadership involvement. It's going to include continuous steering of the strategy, so through feedback loops, right? And then data access policies, right? Especially these days with GDPR and those sort of things, that's something that needs to be part of it. Secondly, the organization itself. So that's how is the organization organized, right? Who is in charge of the data? Who is in charge of the analytics? Are you creating a team within the organization that supports your data platform? How are you managing data as a product? Right? Do you consider this information to be critical to the organization? How do you ensure that people are there if something goes wrong and needs to be fixed, etc.? Making sure that you're leveraging the value that is in your company's data. Third, quite generally, data warehouse. So this new challenge. When I say new, it's not actually brand new anymore. Just the growth of data has been happening. For quite a few years now. However, what we can all see, I think, is that it's always accelerating. So each year is more data than the previous year, and it's getting bigger and bigger. So how do you actually store that data in a way that's scalable and that allows you to have, well, not just you, but actually everyone in your company to have access to fresh and trustworthy data? Do you own your data? Right? Segments talking about different sources that exist. If the data stays in all these different sources, you don't actually have ownership on it, and you're not able to leverage it in the fullest manner. So where do you sit on the spectrum from not having actually any data you own to centralizing everything and to be able to leverage it? Fourth is actually, we finally see the term analytics, right? So there are quite a few steps before we get to this crucial element. And it's around the users, and it's around what you make available to them again. So are the users able to find answers to their data question? Can they take action from the available metrics? Can they tell a compelling story with that data? What are the critical questions? Do they have answers for those, etc.? And as you work towards enabling the organization to maximize the value it derives from the data system, from your data ecosystem, well, you need that to be made available to people. And then lastly, all of this work doesn't have inherent value if nobody is using it. So when it comes to users, do you also have a structure in place for them to be able to access it? So that's both on the technology side, but also on the people side, right? So do you have training available? Do you have trainers? Are you maintaining the system to give access to everyone to the data they need? And also the data they want, right? So at one point in time, they might be very happy, but over time, the next day, the next week, there might be new data sources. They're going to have new questions, and it might be that you need to integrate this new information. So sorry, this analytical maturity happens once as you evaluate it. We have a white paper that you can find online on our website. We also offer services to help you go through it and evaluate. But once you've done it once, you want to be repeating it on a regular basis to make sure that you're staying at the top of your game. Thank you. So.
Thanks, Sebastian. That was yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's really. Thanks, Sebastian. No, that's a really good overview of why and how the customers need to ensure that the customer data into a strategic weapon. I think that's a really good overlay on the segment maturity model as well. So now, bearing in mind the respective maturity models we've just heard about from Julian and Sebastian, it's time to move into, I suppose, a little bit less theory and more reality. And we're going to hear how two customers have been turning that theory into practice. First up is Steve Lucas, and Steve's the head of customer experience with Receipt Bank. For any of you that don't know or aren't familiar with Receipt Bank, their mission is quite simple: is to empower financial advisors to give small businesses time and confidence to succeed. And they do that by making it simple to capture all of the financial information instantly. So, Steve, thanks very much for joining us. Maybe we could kick off just by, if you could tell us a little bit about Receipt Bank and your role as customer experience or head of customer experience. That probably covers an awful lot of ground.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for having me here. So a little bit about Receipt Bank. So Receipt Bank started back in 2010 when our founders were looking for an easier way to work with their accountant, their advisor, on getting their tax documents, their receipts, their transactions over to them. They found that they were losing transactions, having to sort of play catch up, and there's a lot of sort of manual data entry out there. OCR had sort of been around for a few decades at that stage, but wasn't necessarily available to everyone. And the founders saw that they could bring that technology and bring it into their workflow, their process. And so that's where Receipt Bank sort of started in the early days. And since then, we've sort of grown to over 300,000 small businesses around the world, with hundreds of millions of financial documents and receipts being transcribed using OCR, and our AI and machine learning to extract that information and put it into the bookkeeping flow so accountants and advisors can be more there in real time to support the small businesses and give them access to technology that has been around to big business for many years, and bringing that down to the small business owner so that they have access to the same opportunities that technology can now offer there. My role at Receipt Bank, I've been here for the past 5 years. Been really lucky to be part of a startup that's gone through sort of a hyper growth stage into more of a scale up now. We have over sort of 450 employees now at Receipt Bank, which is phenomenal. It's great for partying and then going out for drinks after work. There's a lot of people to go out there and then buy you around there. But no, I've really enjoyed working closely as we've grown up around the world and understanding our customers' pain points around this process of capturing their compliance needs, but then also learning when you're getting on top of the compliance through digitization, what digitization of a small business can start to offer that small business. And that's been a lot of fun learning how to do that. A big part of how we've been able to do that, though, is really just being able to ask a lot of questions about what our users are doing from our data that we're collecting, and being able to analyze and start to do that. And Looker and Segment have been a big part of that for us.
Great, thanks. The one thing I'm impressed by, Steve, is through all that hyper growth and all the undoubted intensity of the work at head of CX, that you still very much got to focus on the fun side of things and making sure people get out and enjoy themselves. So kudos for retaining that, if nothing else. Yeah. So moving away from that, I guess, for a second, and just thinking about your current environment, I suppose I've probably got two interlinked questions for you really to start with. The first one would be, how did Receipt Bank initially think about the whole customer data and analytics piece before you began the journey that you're currently on? And then I suppose, how were you able to yet strategically about the collection and the usage of that data?
Yeah, so like most sort of small businesses, you find someone that has access to the information, the data, and you pester them, you interrupt their day job, and that was no different here at Receipt Bank. I would, going back to the beer analogy, definitely pay the favor forward to buy the right engineers the shout when the time came, and that generally gave you a little bit more capability to getting access to some of the queries that we could get there. What was also sort of disappointing, though, is that you'd ask one person the same question the next day and you'd get a totally different answer, and not having that governance, that transparency and that understanding, plus not being able to answer the information yourself, made it quite difficult to do your role as well as possible in being informed. And so we tried a number of different things, from sort of even like taking samples of data points and scraping our own app to try and create some analytics to understand that, which just wasn't scalable, and it was kind of embarrassing when we look back at it now. But it was one of those things where we knew there had to be a better way. About 4 years ago, we started on that journey by sort of looking at a way to implement a customer data platform where we could use that precious engineering time that we're sort of diverting away from our own products roadmap and putting it into a tool like Segment that could maintain and help us scale up the integration with lots of different business operation tools, and also to be able to create a sort of do once, reap many sort of times over. And so Segment was really helpful for us at the early days, about four or so years ago.
Good. So that's always nice to hear when we're the cornerstone of what you're trying to build. And for all that effort that you've put in, the sources and work out where the data is and where it should flow to, just curious to know then how that's translated, I suppose, into any tangible success areas for you. Is there any specific project or areas you'd hold up as being particularly successful from that point of view?
Yeah, so one that really jumps to mind was one of the very first projects we did. We had segments, so we could quickly chuck a bunch of our data from Salesforce and HubDoc and where else, and we pushed that into our Redshift warehouse, and we could look quickly on there. And as one of our first proof of concepts, we had a problem that was pressing, which was around involuntary churn. It's a pain point for customers. They sort of get cut off from our service, and because their payment or credit card has expired, it's a pain for us to try and to make sure we don't disrupt them like that. But just being a little bit more proactive at letting them know a few weeks or a few months before that card expiry date's coming up, to let them know that they might have a disruption if they don't update their payment methods. It's as simple as a phone call or an email or an in-and-out notification or an SMS, and it can make a huge difference, but we didn't know exactly how much of a difference. We basically, during our trial of Looker and with Segment a couple of years ago now, we managed to put all this together in a couple of hours and put a campaign out that was personalizing the groups. So people were sort of 3 months in this country, and people that were on this payment method and this area. We could do some sort of nice personalization and sort of fancy tagging of these users, and then flow that into our campaign software. I'll just take it sort of, if I push this next slide through here, you can sort of see a little bit of the process here. I'm not sure if it's showing up on everyone's screen, but we were able to sort of connect our Stripe data and our Salesforce to sort of build this sort of analysis of this model of and how we looked at it in the business and how it related to our users. And obviously you don't want to contact users that aren't paying anymore or had left, so we had to sort of do a little bit of cleaning up of that information. But very quickly we got some huge results, and within that first month we'd reduced our involuntary churn by our users by 96%. It made the Looker sales team really happy, because it meant that they had a really good case there for pushing through. Look, if you can find this in a couple of days, imagine what else you could do across the business. And all those things that you guys have talked about the maturity model, we were doing it in some aspects, but just not across the board. And Looker and Segment have made it really easy for us to scale that self-service model, and then now just naturally stumbling into the sort of analytics everywhere aspect of our journey, whether we're embedding answers and results inside Salesforce or inside our Zendesk Help Center platform, or even exposing it to our sort of our customers itself. And that is sort of all the virtue of moving down this line of journey that we've been on. There was another project. I'm not sure if we've got time, if you wanted me to touch on that as well.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I'll just make sure that slide is loading. Yeah, so another one that we had through, which still takes it a little bit further, is we took a lot of the analytics within inside our app, the way that the users were reacting inside our mobile apps and our web apps and the way that they're interacting. And we were able to sort of like personalize and cluster these users in their different sort of pattern history. And so this is something that typically you can do often, extract a whole bunch of data into workbooks and then Jupyter notebooks and then create these sort of arbitrary tags and then load that back in. It doesn't create a lot of transparency, understanding of business logic, and it also requires someone to sort of manually go through and do this exercise. And what we were able to do is sort of automate all this with the flow that you can sort of see here, where we were able to look at users that were sort of drifting or slipping away into dormancy, and quickly we were able to put a nice little campaign together inside Braze, which took the data from Segment and from Looker and Looker's actions, allowing to update those attributes about the users automatically. And so every 6 hours, every 24 hours, depending on the need, we're able to sort of put these custom attributes in, tagging these users based on their real life behavior, and all not really requiring to build this out with engineering time and taking people off some of the other very important parts on our roadmap. And so again, 7% is a very nice increase to reducing of dormancy, and hopefully helping customers remember what it was that they signed up for, the value of Receipt Bank, and reminding them of that value just by nudging them and motivating them to stay on top of the process of using Receipt Bank there. So that was just sort of two use cases. There's obviously many more, and we sort of now gone from sort of a couple of people having access to data to now we've got a few hundred people self-serving and getting access to the information and pulling it in from all parts of our business into one central customer model, thanks to the magic that Segment brings with modern day databases now.
Brilliant. That's really good. That's really good. Evident positive results for you. I mean, I think if anybody could be guaranteed that sort of reduction in customer churn and accompanied by the same positive increase in the customer experience, everybody would be really, really happy. I think those results are absolutely stunning. Bearing all that in mind, then, is there sort of any key thing that you'd advise people to focus on as they start to embark on the similar journey?
Yeah, I would definitely say to work with, look around what's possibly out there, but I can save you a lot of heartache. The stack that Segment and Looker have been able to provide us has really allowed us to leverage a little bit of engineering and data analytics resource and really scale it very quickly. It also answers a lot of questions that you get of why this technology is possibly something like, especially around the GDPR work that we had to go through last year. It just made it so much easier and straightforward when it was all centralized in one place and being able to get an aspect there. Some of the gotchas, I would say, is just trying to find that balance of doing things in a light sort of experimental manner, and then making sure you come back through and productionize it in a way that helps you scale it up to sort of the levels that your customers and the SLAs, the quality that your customers sort of deserve. That's something that we've always sort of definitely challenged ourselves internally with, balancing that act of something from an experimental and hypothesis busting to scaling it up to really deliver a world-class service to our users. So just going back around and making sure you clean up after yourself when you have found something that is bringing a lot of value, that you invest in that return accordingly.
Brilliant. No, thanks. I think that's very sensible indeed, making sure that you've got the necessary checks and balances all the way through to get the gains that you need. And again, I'm sure that's valuable advice to the audience. Just to take it apart, then, what's next for Receipt Bank? Where do you see this going?
Yeah, so there's so many cool ideas that's coming out of there. There's a lot around, we're taking a lot from our AI aspect to where machine learning, data science is in our company. Like I was saying before, if you've got easy access now into the data set, but if it's not based off the business logic or the way that you frame and count things inside the business, your sandboxes, when you release it into the wild, don't necessarily give you the same returns in the model performance that you'd expect. And so from health scores or propensity models or those type of things, being able to build it off the business logic that from Looker and using their API and cleaning your data once in the model and then making sure that every single time you try to build a new model, you're pulling from the same logic that the rest of the business is. That's something that's been really helping us level up our machine learning efforts there. Another really cool thing and a huge opportunity that we really haven't taken much advantage of yet is being able to take this information about our customers and how we sort of can help and advise them on our sales calls and then help them with areas that can go, but exposing that directly back to them so that they can explore and understand and self-serve their own questions off the data that they're generating. And so Look is a great way to sort of embed those analytics. So rather than having to build your own reporting platform and visualization dashboards and stuff like all of us have done from time to time, you can really leverage the power of Powered by Looker to expose that information in a way that can allow them to ask questions that you could never even thought of that would be valuable to the customer. And that's something that we're doing a lot of investigation on how we can bring that to our customers in the future.
Brilliant, thanks. Yeah, I'm sure it's quite difficult to monitor the ecosystem with the diversity of things in it, and trying to look at future trends can be difficult. Steve, thanks very much for that. Really, I think I'd better let you have a little breather before the Q&A comes on. I'm sure there'll be quite a few questions stacked up for you after that. So thanks for that. And guys, moving on to our second customer now is Arne Timmerman. And Arne is the CTO of Your Surprise. Again, for those of you that don't know who Your Surprise are, they're an online gift sites covering 16 countries. And what they do is help their customers to make uniquely personal gifts, which I would suggest would be really useful to surprise your friends, relations, or anybody you want to surprise in a pleasant way. Arne, thanks very much for joining us. Similar to, I guess, the chat with Steve, maybe just an idea of your surprise in your own words, and maybe describing what your key focus areas are as CTO.
Yes, thanks for having me here, Paul. I think you did quite a good job in explaining what we're doing with our company. But let me try to add a few things. So Your Surprise was founded almost 14 years ago by two guys that just left school and wanted to build a business. And then they came across personalization. So they decided to start selling a personalized song. So at our first website, you could really order a CD with a birthday song and your name in the song. So that was one of the first products that we sold. And after that, we started growing quite rapidly. And we're now with 180 people based in the Netherlands and still growing at a rate of about 40% every year. What we do is still selling personalized gifts, but a lot more than 14 years ago. We currently have an assortment with around, I think, 4,000 unique products currently. So at our web shop, you can order personalized mugs, engraved glasses, you name it, and we sell it. And we do this we have our web shop in 16 countries, and next month we'll add another 6. So then we'll be in 22 European countries. We have one store in the States as well, but currently really focusing on Europe. So that's our company, growing fast, a really young company, a lot of young people. Everything that we do, we really do by ourselves. So we have a pretty strong focus on IT development. So that's where my role kicks in. I've been here for 5 years now. And my main focus is actually to make sure that we build the right things for our customers, the right tools on our website, but also the right tools for everyone who's working within our company. So every tool that we have in our production facility or even in customer service, we build it by ourselves. And the other thing that I really focus on is marketing automation and everything that belongs to this area.
Okay, so it's a lot to be getting on with, Arne. I have to say, after your really good description of what you guys do, I'm just wondering how many of our audience are currently on your website buying something for the birthday or the anniversary that they've forgotten in the last week or so.
Oh, yeah, hopefully. Also, let me know if you have ideas about other products or things that you think that we can do better. We're also always open to feedback.
Exactly. I'd like to think we have a mechanism that can help you track the traffic across your website as well. But again, just coming back to the core theme of this webinar, which has been around the maturity models that we're looking to put together. And again, just keen to see how your surprise came to understand the strategic nature of customer data. And again, how did you sort of identify the steps that were required to take that understanding and turn it into some action?
Yeah, so of course we're in the e-commerce business. So everything in the e-commerce business is about data, about customers. So that's nothing new to our company. I mean, we've been trying to do this for 40 years already. I think the major shift came around 3 years ago. When we started to build our moonshot. So we actually closed our company for a day and sat down with all of our employees to create our vision for the future. And this resulted in a simple paper that describes what we're aiming for. And one of the things there was that we want to of course, but we really wanted our customers to come back more and more. We are really good from the start at finding new customers, but not really good at getting customers back. And that's just a matter of focus. So that was quite a good insight for the company. And at that point of time, we did have some tools around marketing automation and around business intelligence, but all those tools were developed by ourselves. So we're really used to build everything by ourselves. We build our own BI tools, our own email marketing software, our own connection. We even had our own analytics platform by then. So that was we needed to grow there. And one of the things that we thought of is that this personalization experience that we have in our gifts is something we would like to incorporate into our websites ourselves. So this personalized experience should be something that's in the heart, not only of our products, but also in the experience that you find on our websites. And that's the point, I think, that we started looking around for tools or people or companies that could help us to face this challenge.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Actually, interesting to see. It's that alignment between the corporate goal and the corporate overreaching goal and the tool. How people work that through, and then having done that, having sort of identified the tools and put them into place, again, just obviously we're always interested in how things go and how successful they are. Is there any particular project that you would highlight as being a very successful harnessing of the technology ultimately, highly personalized environment?
Yeah, definitely. So there's one particular example that I would like to point out. Before I start with the example, of course, it's good to mention that we've started our journey with both of the companies that we talk about today last year. So last year, we actually started using Segment and started building in the integration with Segment. Looker is a little bit newer to our company, so we actually just got started working with Looker. We're now building some standardized dashboards and giving access to everyone in the company to the platform. So that's good to mention. So one of the things that I would like to talk about is a project which we call use the RFM model, and people who work in the e-commerce area are probably aware of this model. But this is really a simple model that gives every of your customers a score. to state how loyal they are. So when you calculate this metric, you look at three things. It's recency, frequency, and monetary. So recency is the freshness of the customer activity. So basically, the last time the customer bought something from your shop. Frequency is the amount of orders that a customer has placed in a certain amount of time. And monetary is, of course, the amount of euros, in our case, or dollars that the customer has spent at your company. So we created a model around this and calculate an RFM metric for each of our customers. And this helps us to group all of our customers into 12 areas. For example, best loyal customers or almost losing customers, and act upon these definitions. So we took 3 steps to incorporate this model and to make sure that everyone in this company can use it, because that was the main challenge. I mean, we had the algorithm, we built it quite fast, but then the next step, of course, was to act upon it. So we did actually 3 things. First, we loaded the RFM model from BigQuery, which is a data warehouse, into Segment. And Segment offers a neat function which is called a SQL trait. And this actually allows you to enrich the profile of your customer with the RFM score. So with that in mind, we actually had all of the RFM metrics within Segment, and therefore also in all of our marketing channels, which means that all of our marketing channels are aware of this RFM score. A second step that we took is that we created audiences in Segment based on these computer traits, so that we can share these 12 groups across all of our marketing channels, which you can see in the screenshot below. We already use these audiences in, for example, AdWords and in our email marketing tool to specifically target those groups and act upon changes. And that brings me to the last slide. This is a visualization built by Looker. One of the things that Segment offers is to not only update the audiences across your marketing channels, but also to send events for transitions between those groups. And we use these events, as you can see, to create a core diagram into Looker to show and to actually visualize how people are moving from one category to another one. So, for example, here is one category selected, and you see them flowing to other categories. And this is something our e-commerce team built by themselves within Looker without any IT involvement, and helps them really to gain more insights in what our customers are doing and act upon it, of course.
Brilliant. Thanks, Arne. For me, what's particularly interesting is to see how, is to see how you've used the, I suppose, your approach to data analytics to address, like I said, both the overall strategic goals that you've got, as well as then the tactical blocks, so the building blocks that are underpinning that strategy. And again, the learnings for anybody else in the audience, what would you say have been, I guess, the hardest things to overcome, or what the areas that you needed to focus on and look out for as you were building this out?
Yeah, so I think when talking to Segment and Looker, the most important advice that I would give if you start integrating one of them or both of these tools is that you do the basics first and you do them good. I think both tools quite benefit from a good basic layer. At least this is something that we have been experiencing. When you set up all the events and in Segment and the model in Looker in a good way, you benefit from this every day. And this is something we took quite some time to make the integration of both tools in a good way. And I think it was a good decision to do it in that way. So, I mean, it's quite hard that you're using a tool that you would like to directly get benefit from, but waiting just a few more weeks and taking just a little bit more time to do the integration well really helps.
Yeah, that Makes absolute sense. And then sort of following on from that, again, what would be the next stage for your surprise, or is it just that you're simply looking to expand across more or geographically based on the current infrastructure?
Yeah, so we have a lot of ideas. I mean, around the RFM model, there are so much more things that we can do. We have to do quite some things in our website to improve the personalized experience over there. One of the things that, for example, we are looking at is to interpret the uploaded files from our customer to help them to get ideas for new gifts. For example, we do a lot of things in the machine learning area, like we're now, for example, building forecast algorithms that predict how much articles we expect to sell by every day. Well, there's a lot in the marketing automation space that we can explore, and I think Segment and Looker are tools that can really help us to do this so much faster than we could do when we would have done this all by ourselves.
Brilliant. No, that's good to hear. Thanks very much. I guess that sort of wraps up the formal part of the agenda for everybody. And we were going to move into the Q&A session. However, there aren't any actually questions that don't cover some of the answers that Steve and Arne have already given. They were around challenges that have been learned and obstacles that have been overcome. So both submitters have said they're happy with what they've heard on the webinar so far. So we'll move past that, and if I can just summarize. For me, and hopefully for you, what came across from this in terms of key points was, the road to data maturity isn't finite. It's much more of a continuous experience, and we all know the ecosystem out there is vast now. There's so many moving parts to it, and that's going to continue to evolve, and customer needs are going to continue. How you meet those needs is going to have to change as well. And I guess what all that means is that having an agile infrastructure in place is going to assist you as and when you need to pivot through whatever angle that happens to be. For some people, it's going to be a slower climb than others, but I think what we've heard loud and clear through the fundamentals right around data collection and analysis are going to be key to having that foundation in place. And then at the same time, which I think is quite complementary for that, being happy to progress in what might be smaller steps, but making sure that you bring identifiable and tangible reward as you scale up. You've got to be able to measure your progress to make sure that you keep that forward momentum. And I think the other thing that came out, particularly in Arne's case, is keeping a laser-like focus on your company's strategic goals actually spawns that develops and inspires you to come up with the necessary tactical steps for you to get there. More importantly, that also allows you to be ready to incorporate any future trends and developments. So it's all about having that agile infrastructure, I think, that gives you the most flexibility possible as you try and react to the environment and the market around you. I guess lastly now, Looker and ourselves would both be delighted to discuss any of you, and happy to workshop your particular environment with you if you think it'll be of any benefit. By all means, please contact us on any of the emails that you see here in front of you at the moment. Everybody's going to get a recording of the webinar anyway, and that sometimes will trigger other questions. So please feel free to come. Outside of that, thank you very much for giving us your time. Appreciate everybody's very, very busy, so to get almost an hour of your time is very valuable to us. Very special thanks to Steve and Arne for giving us all the benefit of their experience. And enjoy the rest of your day. Hope to speak to you all very soon. Thank you.